Shayna Goldman takes over right now as we roll on here on Sabres Live without Marty Baron, who started his All-Star break a little early. Hi, Shayna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Now, you're feeling what, given that your teammates on Too Many Men are in Florida right now, and you appear not to be there with them?
Oh, yeah, this is a nice Floridian backdrop. I have horrible FOMO right now, but I know this is a good thing. I decided to take it easy this weekend and try to recharge for the playoffs, which, like, for the second half of the year in the playoffs, I am not good at doing that. So this is my attempt.
Well, on the heels of watching everything from the Australian Open and completely messing with your time, you know, your body clock and all the rest of it. I don't know how you do it, but it's probably good advice that you're offering up to yourself right now to get the rest. Coincidentally, as you may have seen, TV ratings were down for the Australian Open as well as the NHL lately. What's going on here?
Everyone hates sports. We're all over them. No, the problem is, you know, I think we just need to have more fun with things. And I don't think that sports always are the most fun. Like, look, right now, Allison and Sarah are in Florida, and they went around asking players what their favorite Taylor Swift song is. And some people might roll their eyes at that, but it's something new and fresh and exciting and different. So why not go for it? With hockey, I think we see too much of the same. It's the same voices sometimes, or the same ideas. You can have the same voices if they're willing to look at things a little bit more differently. And, you know, sports, tennis included, could do a lot more to be inclusive. Tennis is one of the least inclusive sports, and anytime anyone's an ounce different, like Naomi Osaka, who has different ideas and different, you know, morals and doesn't just care about the game, they get shunned. They get criticized instead of, you know, accepted for who they are and embraced for who they are and what they can bring that's different. And I think hockey has the same hurdles to get past. So it would be nice to see different opinions, and it would be nice to see different games on, and you know, a little bit of schedule staggering. Not all of us want to watch 10 7 o'clocks at once that all go to intermission at the same time, and we can't get a good variety around the league. If that's the case and that's a schedule, you're probably watching your game and only your game, because you can't keep tabs on the rest of the league as well. You can't flip during intermission. So that accessibility, streaming problems, it all just kind of boils down to the same. Like, there's a lot of growth to be had.
The personality example that you share with tennis, though, has always been problematic in hockey. Anytime anybody seemingly is different, and for a long time, we know why, because there was an intermission report in Canada that chastised foreign players on a regular basis that had an ounce of personality. I don't know. I feel like we're trending the right way. Like, I really like some of the young players, and I think Jack Hughes is a perfect example of it. I think he's got a great personality for all of this. Are you hopeful that, as much as the game has all but disappeared when it comes to All-Star Weekend, are you hopeful that at least the personalities of some of these young players can come out in different ways to raise the game? Because clearly we're never seemingly going back to the traditional All-Star game experience.
Yeah, that would be nice. It's just, I hope that we don't, if someone does something a little bold and exciting, that it's accepted instead of criticized, and how it's ruining the sanctity of the All-Star game, when it's literally like, who cares? We should be having fun. We should be having a good time. If Mitch Marner wants to have quirky skates on, and Jack Hughes wants to call Gatorade Gato, and, you know, like, the other thing with it too is, I feel like so often we hear players come off as cocky and conceited if they have an ounce of confidence. Jack Hughes is one of those players. Trevor Zegras is another. And maybe these players aren't the nicest people on the ice, and maybe they deserve some of what they get, like we hear with Zegras lately, and everyone's speculating in that entire mess. Mm-hmm. But it would just be nice if those players are the ones that we're marketing. Like, Connor McDavid is the best hockey player in the world right now. Well, second to Marie-Philippe Poulin, but that's another story. Best men's hockey player right now is Connor McDavid. He's as bland can be. And I know from Allison and Sarah, they tried. They tried to get something out of him yesterday.
What did they get?
They didn't get much. They said they were like that. We like Mitch Marner. That was the next text I got. You know, they were informing me along the way who played along. And sure, Taylor Swift might not be for everyone, but it's very hard. There's a difference between bland and vanilla. Like, Sidney Crosby is vanilla. We know that. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Connor McDavid's bland. He can't be the player that we market, but players like William Nylander aren't bland, and Mitch Marner and Tage Thompson and Darlene. Like, there are so many players around the league who have personality that should be showcased. And this weekend is the perfect opportunity for that to happen, but it needs to happen on a regular basis. We need it that these players are getting a chance on social media to show who they are. If they like fashion, it doesn't need to be criticized. If they like other sports, if they have ginormic dogs like Matt Murray, like we can have a good time with it. We just should, we shouldn't take it so seriously. It's hockey.
I agree. And I think we often dabble into this area, but nobody's quite mastered how to present it where it doesn't seem forced and it doesn't seem out of place within the context of these original looking broadcasts. I don't have all the answers here at this point in time, but it's very clear we have not broken through. And that's something that this sport needs, whereas other sports, it just kind of evolves naturally because the game is understood by more people. Other sports are understood by more people. And hockey, for as long as it's been around, still struggles with this,
Absolutely. And I saw some of the criticism too. I know I tweeted something about the negative headlines in hockey, and some were like, well, football has them every day of the week. Yeah, but that's fine. They can get away with that because they're, America's game now. They've overtaken baseball. They are the sport. When you're on that stand as the number one sport, you could probably do whatever you want and still have a ton of fans watching you every week. Hockey isn't in that position. And until they are, which maybe they'll never be here in the US, which is okay, clean it up a little bit, make it that it's a more inclusive sport, lean into Pride nights. That's really big. It might not seem important to everybody, but there are fans it's important to. And bringing different, people on broadcast. We don't need to watch a broadcast and it's people who have probably been doing it for 40 years and who don't want to be exciting and new and different. You know what I mean? There's ways to do it. And I don't mean to insult anyone that's been around the game and been a part of it for so long, but I just think that there's ways to either be more like the New York Islanders broadcast. They brought in AJ Malesko. That's a great perspective to have. And they have Butch Goring, who's been around the game for years. But Butch Goring seems like one of the nicest people, one of the most open-minded people to growing with the game. I think he has so much since he's worked with Brendan Burke, and they have this really nice balance. And when the Islanders had people like Ali Raisman on a game, he's the first one there promoting it. That's what we need. Someone, if you're in the game forever, then you need to grow with it too. And then on the other hand, it's bringing in different perspectives and voices. And that's why it's really nice to see some of the women's hockey players joining the ranks of the broadcasters because they bring in a fresh perspective. And it's nice to see, yes, I'm biased, but nerds joining too, like Alison Lukan, who, that's a woman. She's an analyst. That's huge. Who, unlike AJ or Jennifer Botterill, never played the game, but has a fresh perspective and brings something different every week.
Yes, and does it in the most endearing way. I mean, she has an incredible ability to not offend, not come across as she presents the information so well. I don't know how anybody couldn't benefit from watching or listening to Allison. So let's dive into a little bit specifically here with the Sabres as we're sitting at All-Star break. Shayna Goldman, our guest from The Athletic. One area has definitely been a concern for this group, the penalty kill, especially on home ice. It's been really bad. It's under 70%. Are there any significant numbers here that are causing this right now? Because it might be a big difference maker for this team right now. Normally they can outscore a lot of problems, but when you're as disciplined as they are and you only take 1 or 2 penalties a game and you're still getting scored on, it can change the game in a hurry.
Yeah. So the Sabres problem is where they're allowing shots from. You could see it, from the circle. They allow quite a few quality chances against, and right from the slot, right up the middle of the ice in that net front area, their expected goals against per 60 is 20% weaker than what than league average, according to HockeyViz, which is really a problem for them. Defense, definitely an issue. There are some players like Samuelson and Tuck and Gergensons don't have the best defensive impacts. Now, it's always interesting how you look at penalty kills, because in today's game, we could take a little bit more of an innovative approach, and that's having more of a two-way impact. Because if you're not just in a defensive shell and you can push up the ice, you're killing time. And that's what some players on the Sabres are really good at. they rate really well offensively in their shot generation and their expected goal creation. And it's thanks to players like Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin. So that's what they need to lean a little bit more into. I don't think this is as much a personnel problem as they could probably, tweak the strategies and promote that. Because if you can disrupt play, and players who, play on the power play, sometimes are really good on the penalty kill because they can read plays a little better. They know the systems and strategies because they play them themselves. And that's why it makes sense with Cousins and Dahlin, is kind of embracing that and pushing for them to be aggressive, because generally speaking, when you are more aggressive on the penalty kill, you are not allowing as much back. And some people might think it's a little too risky of a strategy, and it can be, but it's something that can be perfected to have a power kill. So you're really dominating play in all situations.
And they've been, for the most part, top 5, and might still be right now, in shorthanded goals for. And I think everything you just said was it was trending the right way for them for a long period of time. I have not noticed it nearly as much lately in their game. And maybe that's why, as we hit this break, we've been thinking about it a little more as far as the goals. Did you find anything goaltending wise, save percentage wise on the penalty? I mean, when the first thing you said was the area where they're giving up the chances, that tends to get the goaltending off the hook a little bit because you're not protecting them as well as you would like. But did you see anything in the goaltending on the PK?
Yeah, it looks like they don't have the easiest workload and they're not responding well to it. So whether they're playing on par with expectations, the goaltending is not going to look good, and whether it's responding poorly. But again, you expect it with where the shots are coming through, who the goaltending trio really is. This is not, this elite goaltending trio like Igor Shesterkin or Ilya Sorokin, who can just mask every single problem. Right. If you leave them exposed, you can't expect perfection, and they're getting left very exposed. So I think a lot of the work does need to come in front of the crease, and then individually for the goaltenders, it's just trying to respond as well as you can to the workload, and ideally that workload gets a little bit better.
Sabres were challenged with some injuries right before the break. Samuelsson missed a little time. Cousins missed a little time. They came back. We were curious as to whether Tage would play in the last game against Carolina. He ended up not being able to go through the entirety of the game, which is the absolute worst case scenario in the minds of Sabres fans here. The only good news is they don't play again until February the 11th. So there's the rest factor here, which is going to help, obviously. And this is worst case scenario, obviously, if they have to miss Tage for any length of time, how do you view this team trying to overcome that?
Good luck. He is their game breaker. On offense, I would say the Sabres right now have one game breaker, and it's Tage Thompson. And it's for every single reason, everything he does. When he's on the ice at 5-on-5, the Sabres, according to Hockey Viz, generate 3.38 expected goals for per 60. That's 30% above league average. When he's not on the ice, but in the lineup, not in the lineup, just not on the ice, they are just below league average. So it's a huge swing when he's not on the ice. The bright side is Tuch and Skinner are still above average at generating offense without Tage Thompson in their minutes, but it's still not to that same degree as when he's there. Ideally, every team that contends has a game breaker, has the elite talent. They have it in Tage Thompson. And his versatility and how much he brings to the lineup, like Tuch has his skill set, it's very good. Skinner has his skill set, it's very good. Tage Thompson has a little bit of everything in his skill set. He's outstanding. That's the player they need. So if they're out without him for any period of time, it's going to be really, really, really tricky to, try to make up for what he brings to the lineup.
The trickle down would be the worst part of this, but assuming that Dylan Cousins obviously would have to slide into that spot, how do the numbers say he would be able to help stabilize at least the top trio?
So what helps is, Tage Thompson is really good in transition, but so is each member of that line. Cousins is really good in transition. So you have three options who can bring the puck into the zone possession. The problem with Cousins is turning those entries into something productive every single time. If he has Skinner and Tuch, it increases the chances of him doing that because he has better talent on the top line than he would anywhere else. The problem is you just lost a puck carrier from your second line, and no one in the lineup compares to him, Thompson, Skinner, Tage Thompson. This gets, and Tuch, Thompson, Skinner, and Cousins. You are just lost all, you're so top loaded at that point. Right. So now it's the trickle down effect on the rest of the lineup. Is it going to be chip and chase play? Are they going to have any actual scoring threats? It feels like they really have something going with the kid line. When any part of that kid line's missing, now you might have a problem there too. So it's a problem of depth, which is okay for where the Sabres are right now. Right. They're not the contender in the league, so their depth isn't going to be perfect, but it would really be strained in this situation.
I've always believed that there might be a secret hidden curse for players of the week, player of the month, things like that. Sometimes they get awarded, and then the first game out of it is a tough one. That just happened with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. The result, anyway, against Carolina certainly wasn't his fault, but he was just named Rookie of the Month. What do you see in Luukkonen's numbers that have him pointed in the right direction and or have, justifiable based on inexperience concerns?
So when he first came up to the NHL level this year, his play was not great and it sunk his numbers for season wide. And then he started to pick it up in his stint back up, where he started playing a little bit more consistently and we were seeing quality starts. Right now, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. In January, we see some quality starts, we see some just below average, but it's not to some huge degree if he falls below expectations, which is really impressive. Maybe he's allowing a goal more than expected. That's really not bad, especially when you consider his experience and, the team he's playing behind and things like that. Couple things he can work on. He does struggle with backhands a bit. A lot of goalies do, especially because if a player is good with their backhand, they don't need to stop, get to forehand, anything like that. It's on the rebound. They can just knock it in with their backhand. It's going to challenge everyone. So, for that, I'm like, okay, sure. And he could, it's the net front area. He allows a little bit more than expected, which one of the toughest areas of the ice and has to link back to that penalty kill and from the top of the left circle. But there's really nothing there that's a huge red flag that screams what he's done so far isn't sustainable, because there's good with the bad. And the good is good and the bad isn't that awful. It's not awful. It's just below. So I think that there's, a path forward where we can see him just keep building on that with experience and with the team around him getting better.
One thing that I upset at least one viewer recently, I made a comment about, it being more coincidence that they're struggling at home, which this person didn't, quite understand what I meant. That the point is they're not terrible at home. They're just a little below 500. And a lot of the numbers would tell you they should be better at home because they create more chances at home. They just haven't been good on the penalty kill and haven't necessarily had as sharp a goaltending. So yes, those are reasons, but I think what I was trying to say was I don't notice a dramatic difference between how this team plays at home compared to on the road. So inevitably you're going to lose some games. I just feel it's been a little bit of a coincidence lately that they've kind of piled on top of one another on home ice as opposed to the road. Can you get me out of the mess that I've created for myself here?
You're right.
Is there really much to it? And this doesn't have to be a Sabre thing. Like, I think historically, there's always been so much made about home and road in hockey, but most people know that it really doesn't make that much of a difference anymore, right? Like, it's right. It's hockey. It's wherever it's played.
Yeah, the game doesn't change that much. There's a couple things that might be a little trickier on the road. But so if we go first with the Sabres, they're generating a 5-on-5, according to Natural Stat Trick, around 53-54% of the shot and expected goal share. Their shooting percentage is only 8.6 on home ice, and their save percentage is only 905. Not great. They're not getting lucky, but they're doing the right things. And like you mentioned, the penalty kill and things like that are going to add up. If we look at on the road, they're only generating 49% of the 5-on-5 shots, 47% of the expected goal share. They are shooting over 10%. They do have a 933 save percentage, on the road. I don't think that holds up. I think they need to improve below the surface to maintain the results. I think on home ice, the results will come. Usually it does at 5-on-5, but you also need things not to spiral out if special teams fail or, you make a mistake and you can bounce back, and they're a young team. So that's something they're going to learn from. I do think too much is made of home versus away ice, honestly. Yes, you get last change at home. That's great and wonderful for matchups. I think sometimes they're overblown. If you can roll 4 lines, you're doing the right thing. In some cases, it legitimately makes a difference. If we go back to the playoffs a couple of years ago and we look at Philip Deneau and what he's done against certain players, Mark Stone and Nathan McKinnon, we've seen him in action shut down top players. He did it to Austin Matthews. That is legitimately a thing. I think that's more true in a series versus regular season, because you might play Philip Deneau once or twice in the regular season and it could be spaced out by 30 games. Of course, the 7-game series, home ice is going to matter. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But for the regular season, I think if you have enough faith in your team, you can roll them out against anyone and you can try your best to work with the matchups. And when you're on the road, you can't overthink it as much. You kind of just have to react and respond. And I think that's really good for a team to learn from that and figure out a plan. If we lose this face-off, this is how we handle it. If, you know, for some reason, Tage Thompson isn't getting freed up in his minutes and they know how to clobber him, we need to figure out a way around it. We need to have different strategies. We need to make sure we have another weapon on this line that can handle it. There's all different things that you can do on the road to try to deal with the circumstances you know you're going to, you know, be handed. And I think in the regular season, there's ways around it. So sometimes I just think that gets a little bit overblown.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never heard Marty react so negatively to a certain part of a statistic, and he went off this year when he said the most meaningless stat in the stats pack is home and road splits on special teams. and he's kind of right, but sometimes there's no reason to explain it. Like, you could be the number 2 power play at home and number 30 on the road, and it just doesn't make any sense. But it was so funny just to see his reaction to it, that as a player, he felt that there was absolutely no basis in even keeping track of it. So I don't know.
I agree with him.
Yeah.
Fully agree with him.
Well, that makes sense.
You know what a team's power play is. You know what a team's penalty kill is. You can study the tape every day of the week. It doesn't matter if you're home or away. You're the top power play unit, you're probably getting the top penalty kill unit. And if not, there's 2 other options to study for.
Yeah, very true. What are you excited about tonight for All-Star Skills?
Well, I'm a little bit upset about Tage Thompson not being there to show how creative he is. And I really want to see him win the hardest shot competition. Like, I was pumped for that. At the 2 Minute Men podcast, we love Tage. We talk about him constantly, and we were all hyped about that. We were saying cancel the All-Star game if he can't play. So going to maintain that. But you know what? I'm excited for the young players. I'm excited to see Jack Hughes. I'm excited to see Dahlin because I think he deserved to be there. I want to see what Mitch Marner can do. And the classics like Alex Ovechkin and his son being there, and same with Sidney Crosby. Like, you know, it's a good group of players. There's a ton of skill in this league. Put it on display.
Will you be watching, or will you be resting and taking a break from it all?
You know, I can't stay away from it. I'll be watching.
Yeah, I've been saying that I'm not going to watch, but there might be a chance I end up watching some of it. But anything league-wide here that, I mean, obviously Washington locked up Dylan Strome today, 5 years, $5 million. You tweeted about that it was pretty much fair market value for him. The Capitals are a really interesting team, though. They have so many unrestricted free agents going into next year, and they have a lot of work to get done. But we are obviously a month out from the trade deadline, and names just continue to pop up. Jonathan Taves among them. What do you think is imminent here, if anything?
I think the Washington Capitals are such a weird team. They were like the best team in the month of December. They were trending up in every single category. They were dominant at 5-on-5, and it definitely has, you know, slipped a bit. Yep. They've been dealt a really tough hand with injuries, but if I'm them, I am going all in. Forget the future. It does not matter. Maximize your time with Ovechkin, which seems like they want to do it, and maximize your time before you have to rebuild like your entire blue line. Yeah. I think every single defenseman except for John Carlson is a pending free agent, restricted or unrestricted.
Correct.
I wouldn't want to deal with that if I was a manager. I mean, you get the fun of a clean slate, but you don't get like the best free agent pool. I'm really curious what happens, though. And it's players like, we saw Horvat off the board already, which was spicy. I am curious if he gets flipped again. I think that would be absolutely wild. And I'm kind of rooting for that just for like the chaos factor. But I'd be shocked if like Taves wasn't moved, especially when we know Patrick Kane's injured. If you're Chicago, you have to move him. And I can't see a team like Colorado not being in the mix to just pump up their center depth a bit. And I'm really curious about guys like Ryan O'Reilly. Like, is he going to get flipped? I know he wants to stay in St. Louis, but does he go on the move? Does, you know, Tarasenko, how much does St. Louis sell off? They're a team for me to really watch. Where does Buffalo come in? Where does Seattle come in? The teams with assets and cap space, like what do they do to spice it up? Well,
you're using that word spice. I think if Ryan O'Reilly ever ended up back in Colorado, I think that would be crazy good for the Avalanche. You know, all due respect to everybody that they have on the roster right now, we all know they've not essentially replaced everything Kadri brought for them last year. You bring in Ryan in a short term, if, you know, there's a harmonious, you know, reaction to it. I think it would be absolutely fabulous. But I part of me is, wherever Ryan goes is going to really bulk up whichever contender he lands with, if he chooses to go there.
I didn't even think of him going back to Colorado. And now you have my brain buzzing going like, Taves, that's small peanuts. If you could get Ryan O'Reilly, like I like Alex Newhook. I like JT Compher. They have very talented sisters and it's really nice to see them try to match up to them. But, if you get Ryan O'Reilly there, that would be really cool because like we haven't seen Colorado at full strength. We haven't seen that second line at full strength. Val Nichushkin's been in and out of the lineup. We haven't seen Landeskog yet. And I feel like it's so hard to judge that center position because generally speaking, you could be like, throw anyone there.
Yeah.
Besides someone like me, that's not going to work. But like throw anyone there.
Well, think for this.
It'll work.
We didn't even get to Vegas. We'll save that for when Marty returns with us next week. Thank you for everything. Enjoy All-Star Weekend and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Shayna Goldman from The Athletic and Too Many Men podcast. All-Star Skills tonight, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. It's 7 p.m. start on ESPN and ESPN+.